You're listening to The Whole Spiel, a podcast from USA Curling that puts the spotlight on people who curl in the United States, people who are building the sport, and people who just flat out love it. In this episode, we have a conversation with a guy who has led the construction process of a dedicated ice facility, not just once, but twice. He brought Long Island energy and a bit of chutzpah to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and wound up as the driving force behind a curling club. Craig Fischer, welcome to The Whole Spiel.
Thanks, Dean. Great to be on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So, Craig, I met you in 2016 when I brought my brushing clinic to your club, and I remember I came away impressed by what you and your team had accomplished in such a short time, this 3-sheet facility, and really what was a curling desert in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then just before COVID, this last year, I guess, you moved into another location with 4 sheets. So all this progress I find pretty fascinating. But one of the things that amazes me, if we go step back from your current facility, you went from skating ice in your first facility to dedicated curling ice, and you had 24 members. So I want to know what made you take that crazy leap, because that's a big leap.
Yeah, so it was a risk, obviously. So we had started the club in 2010, lots of interest, 85 members out of the gate. And as typical with an arena club, you lose some people and it's tough to get them back in. You've got a maximum capacity of, 32 people on the ice if you've got 4 sheets. And, if you have 4 more people come, you've got to find ways to try to accommodate them, and that can be a challenge. So
right.
We stepped down in, participation each year. And then we had an Olympic cycle coming up, and we knew we wouldn't be able to take advantage of the Olympic cycle in an optimal fashion on arena ice, where, we might be able to schedule 2 or 3 learn to curl sessions, during the Olympics, and that's probably it. And that would have made it difficult for us to get back up to the level to sustain us for another 4 years. So myself and Greg Eigner, one of our other founders, had been talking for years about, wouldn't it be nice to get to dedicated ice, and sort of always held it out there as a bit of a pipe dream. But, with our participation level dropping and the Olympic year coming up, we sort of looked at things and said, we probably need to take a risk if this club is going to continue to exist, because maybe we would have doubled, participation up to 48 members, but 4 years down the road, we'd be down to 10 and
right.
wouldn't be sustainable. We were, losing a little bit of money each time we're out on the ice anyway, with 24 participants. So we, sort of took a Field of Dreams, build it and they will come approach, and took some risks. Greg and I both put some money into it and a lot of energy, and a few of our other club members did as well. And we were able to make it, 3 months, $300,000 later, we had a 3-sheet club.
So your original club was on the site of a former bakery, right? The first club you built sort of on the Portland Columbus model, right? Rented a space.
Yep. So we rented a space. We were, we looked at 50 different locations, but ended up with a location that was 100 yards from the ice rink that we originally curled at. And it was nickel bakery, thrift shop. And in the back was a distribution center. So they didn't
right.
bake there, but in the front was where people would go in and buy their bread at a discount. And in the back, it looks like a little strip mall in the front, but it's actually this large warehouse behind it. And we only took up about a third of the length of it. Funnily enough, one of our members' dads was a driver for Nichols Bakery and actually still had a key to the place when we ended up moving in. And we ended up selling them back some of their truck lifts that they left behind. So that was interesting as well. But yeah, so it was, we got really lucky, as those who have researched it probably know. It can be difficult to find an optimal warehouse, the right size for a curling club. You want one that's long and thin in general. Yeah. And we looked, as I said, at about 50 different locations and just got really lucky to find one 100 yards away from our previous location. We just had to, there was we actually looked at it online once and said, well, it's not long enough. And then a new realtor came along and they said, yeah, actually the place next to it's vacant. It's just a drywall wall between it. You can knock that down. So, so yeah, we got lucky.
So you brought in the build out, $300K, and then your lease was on top of that. Is that right?
Yep.
Or
Yep. Yeah.
So year one, you had 24 members in there, and then how did you grow?
So we opened a month before the Olympics. So we opened on January 19th or 18th or something like that of 2014, and a month later the Olympics happened, and we started up. We may or may not have even started up a league, but we shut down and just ran learn to curls constantly during the Olympics, and ran rookie leagues immediately thereafter. And by the next September, when curling season started up, we were at like 75 members. So tripled membership practically overnight, and grew a little bit incrementally year over year from there.
And I know now you've moved into this. You've got an owner financed purchase, I guess, of a new building. You have 4 sheets in there. Did you take equipment? Did you take your equipment I guess you did, right? And how easy was that for clubs that are contemplating that?
Yeah. So when we did the first club, we used the ice mat system, the CalMac ice mat system, and we had a Train 50 nominal ton chiller, and a low E ceiling, insulation, dehumidifier, duct socks for both heater and a dehumidifier. And almost all of that we moved over. So chiller we moved over, the mats we moved over, we drained the glycol out of them and moved those over. The low E ceiling wasn't the right dimension for the new facility, so we bought a new one of those. And the insulation wasn't optimal, so we replaced the insulation. But yeah, all the equipment, it was we did the move ourselves. So obviously we had a rigging company move the chiller itself, but the ice mats and everything else we did ourselves with just club member volunteer help. And it wasn't as difficult as we imagined it would be. Our biggest challenge is we couldn't bring those all into the warehouse that we were still doing construction on. So we rented a trailer out back and put them in there. Right. And there was only about a 1/2-inch gap between the top of the trailer and the ice mat headers. So that was a little bit of a challenge. But other than that, a lot of volunteer work and a lot of sweat equity from our members. But yeah, all that stuff moved over. We had to buy some additional ice mats for the additional sheet.
Right.
But the equipment moved over pretty flawlessly. We ran into some challenges with the electrical setup at the new facility. Even though it was across the street and 200 yards down, it was actually a different electric feed that was coming in. It wasn't different voltage level and stuff like that. So we had to make some last minute adjustments. But
well, it's funny because I know little about construction or all these things. So when I hear people talk about it and you make it sound easy, what I'm imagining is like people like carrying a chiller down the street themselves, or I'd have no idea how to do it. But it's I do know as well. I'm going to throw you out there as a resource for people who are doing this. I know you probably get bugged about that a lot, but I'm going to throw that out there that you're a great resource for people contemplating the warehouse setup or the move from the warehouse. I heard you on the Rocks Across the Pond podcast a while back, and you said one of the things you did was you said there was some guidelines from USA Curling at the time that you ignored because you didn't want to know maybe how daunting the whole thing was, and you thought you could figure it out better yourself, which I think was a good strategy, to be honest. But looking back, how many things would you have done differently, or what was one thing you would have done differently?
Oh boy. I think that the challenge, you always have in these warehouse type of facilities, and I think others will attest to it, is sealing the pond. So in essence, you're building up from a concrete floor and creating a pond for the ice to be formed in. And sealing that is always a challenge. And we, you always think you have it covered, but water is smart, and
Yeah,
water
it's
always
tricky.
finds a way. And we still have a leak, this time around, even though we did more liners and put down some EPDM. I probably would have invested in getting a professional to come out and work on that.
Yeah.
Both times. One time we relied on the contractor for guidance. The second time we said, well, we know better. We're going to do a bit more. And it still wasn't there. And it probably would have cost us $5,000, probably $5,000 that we didn't have.
Right.
But to bring somebody out to seal that, would save us,
A lot of heartache and headache.
a lot of heartache. And, even it's fine during the season, but when we melt, it comes into the warm room a little bit. It's not as bad. Portland has in their setup, at least they used to have the warehouse for the art museum located next to them. So any leakage would be
damaging art.
Yeah. So we don't have any of that. Even the old location, the unit next to us that we leaked into was it wasn't a big issue.
You're not next to Fort Wayne's most precious modern art collection, right next door. What's EPDM? I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. So tell me what EPDM is real quick.
Sure. EPDM is the rubber roofing material that is used on flat roofs.
Got it.
So it comes in a big roll. I think ours was 40 feet wide, which is not wide enough for our pond. So, we had to seam it and overlap it and then seal it with a couple of different things. So the idea was there, rubber roofing material is designed to keep water out. And so either we didn't seal it well, or it got punctured at some point. I'm not sure why we're leaking, or it's leaking out over that somehow. Not quite sure. It's tough to narrow that down.
Yeah, I'm sure I could narrow it down for you if I got to look at it, Craig. I could go through some eyes on it. But hey, let's talk about programming for a moment at curling clubs. And you have some great stuff on that. And when I first met you, you told me about you have a son with autism, and you talked to me about the league you created at the Fort Wayne Club for special needs children and their parents, siblings, or friends. And it's always stuck with me, and I've told other clubs about it. I think it's a terrific idea, and it educated me too. One of the things you mentioned was that parents with special needs children have a difficult time doing activities with them in a sort of a stress-free, supportive environment. So tell me a little bit about that league and how it works.
Sure. So actually, the whole reason that I got into curling was that my wife and I identified it as something that our son could potentially do with us. So we did some Learn to Curls in Bowling Green, Ohio in 2006 after the Olympics, and found that
which is a 2.5 hour drive, right? It's
2.5 hours each way. Yeah.
So there's a dedication right out of the gates, but keep going. Yep.
Yeah. So we did that, had a great time, and really found that it was something that he enjoyed. And as you sort of hinted at, as a parent of a child with special needs, what we've found is it's really difficult to find physical activities that to do with our child where I can enjoy it to the fullest, right? If I take him out for basketball, it's me having fun spending time with him, but I'm not necessarily enjoying basketball because, not that I can dunk, but I couldn't if I was playing against him. And curling, because two factors in my mind. One is you take turns when you go, and there's nobody, with the exception of sweeping behind the tee line, there's nobody actively working against you from a defensive standpoint.
It's true, right? Like you can go and curl. One of the things I've always, and this is tangential, I guess, but one of the things that I've always thought about curling, like if I go out and play Andre Agassi in a tennis match, even now at his age, I have no chance, right? But he could curl against me and be terrible, but have a chance. So, or at least not have his play impeded, right? So that's
exactly. Yeah. So your play is your own, and you play against a tough opponent, right? They may take out your shots, but they're not going to negatively impact your own play.
Right.
So I can play, and when it's my turn to throw, it's as if I'm playing in a normal game, right? I can throw it. I can, the sweeping is the same, everything else. But when my son's going, I can assist him with the delivery. I can help, like what we call foot wedges, to help him, get it in slightly the right direction, or reverse turn for him if he needs to. But it's something that I think a lot of parents of children with special needs don't really have, is the ability to enjoy something together, because the list of physical activities are so small that can happen in. So we sort of identified that as a thing. We did some stuff when we were still at the arena. So we had the floor curling sets and would go into my son's gym, my son's school, and teach adaptive physical education, and deliver the stones that way, and teach them a little bit about the game. And then as the capstone, we had the ice rink donate the time during the day, and we took them out on the ice. So we did a little bit of that before we got into our dedicated facility. But once we got into the dedicated facility, then, we had much, much more ability to work with individuals with special needs. And we approached a local foundation, one that focused on improving the lives of individuals with disabilities. And we talked to them about what we had done and what we wanted to do. And as many people will find, there's foundations out there that have a legal requirement to give money. And if you can come up with something that covers their goals, they're pretty open to giving you money. And so we partnered with them. They helped us. The first thing is that we wanted to make things as safe as possible. So they covered the cost of equipment, helmets, halos, grippers for everybody, even new brooms and broom heads, because some of the stuff we had was pretty dated from that we got hand-me-downs when we had started the club 6 years ago. And started promoting it. And I think our biggest challenge today is still promoting it and getting the participation that we could possibly have. And we run it Sunday afternoons for about an hour and a half. We play, depending on pace of play, we play, 3 or 4 ends. Yeah. And our focus is really on individuals feeling empowered, feeling like they can do things, enjoying themselves. So we highly encourage parents, siblings, and peers to play alongside. We don't have people show up and tell them to, teach them the slide, because that can be, especially for individuals with disabilities, whether they be physical or intellectual, can be frustrating. We get them started immediately with the stick, and within 5 minutes, they're sliding a stone down the ice, and gradually grow their ability. And we've had, a lot of success. I mean, in 1 year, we had 86 unique participants, and the grant generates, if we have a good year from promotion and participation, a little over $20,000 a year in revenue for the club. So it's really incumbent upon us to get the participation level up.
It reflects well on the club within the community as well, which is something I think as curling clubs we don't always think about.
I've been a huge advocate, especially for arena clubs, of making yourself an asset in the community one way or another. Because if you want sponsorship dollars, if you want grant dollars, nobody's going to give that to a bunch of guys standing around drinking beer and sliding stones down the ice. But if you do stuff for veterans, if you do stuff for the elderly, if you do stuff for individuals with special needs, people will open their wallets, and that's what it's about. If you want to make the leap to dedicated ice, you've got to be an asset to the community and do stuff more than just leagues. You've got to find ways to solve problems in your community, or at least assist problems in the community.
And then once you're in a dedicated facility, those interest groups as well can be terrific programming revenue sources. I mean, you can have. I've talked to, clubs where they have a 2-on-2 seniors league, and there's, groups for veterans, obviously, there's not only grant money, but you can have, programming going on, especially at hours that maybe other people can't play at. So it's an opportunity all around for people to take advantage of.
Yep. You can use, once you have dedicated ice, it's a fixed cost. So there's no incremental cost in doing these things other than the volunteer time of your members. And it drives, even the special needs program drives other membership. We've got two individuals that play in our special needs league, but also play in regular leagues. Now the grant covers that for them, but they're full-fledged members of the club. And we do programs for disabled veterans, and that's covered by the grant as well. So our view is any determination of disability qualifies. And we have a partnership with a company, a group called Turnstone, which is a local Paralympic organization where we do wheelchair curling clinics, and we've had people from the Paralympic team come in, and we've had Steve Brown, when he was running that program, come down and run clinics and things of that nature. And the more clubs can do, especially clubs that are looking for money from outside, to make yourself an asset in the community is going to benefit the club.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Paralympics, I think goalball is headquartered in Fort Wayne, Indiana, isn't it?
Turnstone, went big on that, and they did a big expansion to their facility and ended up being the training center for goalball.
Yeah. When I was on the AAC Athletes Advisory Council with USOPC, I got to know the rep from goalball pretty well, and he was talking about spending time in Fort Wayne. Yeah. Recently we just had a conversation. One of the things you mentioned that I thought was interesting, we were talking about marketing during Olympic year. Obviously, that's been big for your club in the past. But one of the things you pointed out was the importance of starting those efforts well in advance of the Olympics themselves as the curling season gets rolling. And I think that's a good suggestion for a lot of clubs. I think some clubs do that. Maybe some clubs don't think about it as much. What are some of the things your club might be planning to do next year?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, and it's something that I think we have failed at previously, and just waited till the Olympics were just about upon us to really do an active marketing effort. So we're doing a much more proactive approach this year. A variety of things. We're doing a lot more open houses and not focusing on the dollars. We'll do Learn to Curls, but we're going to do a bit more open houses where people can just come in, check out the facility, get on the ice for a few minutes, try some things out. And we'll be doing that throughout the year. We're doing some things with our local sports team. So, Fort Wayne is a hockey mad town, and we have a team here called the Comets.
The Comets with a K, I think, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yep. So in fact, we were going to have the Comets out just in late March of 2020, and ended up having to cancel due to COVID lockdown. But we're going to have them out, and that's an opportunity. It'll be a private event for them. They like to do things as a team building, and they do plenty of fan events. So they're not going to have fans out, but they're going to promote it on social media. And the idea is, in my mind, is get people out to learn about curling so they can enjoy watching in the Olympics. And if you get people out to do that, and not set necessarily to become curlers, but to understand the game more, you're going to get curlers out of that. So we're working on a promotion, to really help people understand the game in advance of the Olympics, so they can maximize their Olympic viewing experience. Because you talk to so many people, and they're like, I watched every hour of curling coverage I could. I got sucked in by it. Right. And they come to a Learn to Curl, and they're like, okay, well, how does the scoring work? And they're like, I don't know.
It's amazing it holds them that long, because there are people with no idea what's going on.
Exactly.
By it. Yeah.
So we're really focusing on, pulling people in to educate them so that they can enjoy the Olympics. And some of that may be, off ice, people that don't even want to go on the ice and try it, but who are just want to learn about the game, and we'll teach them. And then we'll do, Learn to Curls as well, so people can try it and have a little bit of experience of it before the Olympics. We're going to try that starting in September when we open. We'd likely, I think interest will grow over time leading up until February, just prior to the Olympics, and interest will be real high there. But the goal is, the challenge is the Olympics are right at the tail end of the curling season, and you get lots of interest, and there's a limited window of time afterwards to get people hooked.
Yep.
And we want to get people in as early as possible, because the earlier we get them in, the more they're able to participate, the more likely they are to come back the next season.
Yeah, and I'm, I've talked to you about this, but I'm, at USA Curling, we're going to try to help with that education in advance. I think it's a great idea. Have you guys done wraparound leagues in the past where someone can join post Olympics and then carry that forward to the next season?
We haven't. You mentioned that when we spoke, and I had talked to one other club previously. But that's a great idea. And if clubs haven't thought about that, because curling season ends shortly after the Olympics, you get people in, they get 3 or 4 weeks of play. They're paying for a full league. They get the first 3 or 4 weeks in at the end of the season, and then they've got to come back in the fall for the rest of it. And you hopefully they've made a financial commitment, and therefore they come back. And if they don't, you've at least got their money.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mentioned to you. My club did that. And most, we got almost all of that group. I think it was 80 curlers after 2010 came back. But a couple of people actually did that league, paid for their full membership the next year, and then didn't show up, but also didn't request a refund. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important though, because it's so easy to, people come out and then yet, it's not great when you want to do something and then we're such an instant gratification society. And then somebody says, well, we'll see you next October or September. But so it's something for clubs to think about. Now, last thing I'm going to ask you, well, I got 2 more things to ask you, Craig, but everybody at USA Curling right now, we certainly don't think we're perfect. So I'm going to ask you what you think USA Curling can do a better job of. And I'm not going to ask you to make it like a 20-minute answer, but but I do want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 things, and I know this is being worked on, but every club out there is being run by volunteers practically in the U.S. and we don't know all the details, and we're not experts, but guidance on return to curling this year, we got good guidance last year. It's important that we have guidance this year. Things have changed a bit with vaccines and everything else, and so we want to understand how we should be planning to operate, or what at least the recommendations are. Obviously, we can make our own choices, but that's helpful, and I know that's being worked on, and so that's important. I would say, in my mind, and I think with lots of others, there's still lots of questions around the new membership model, and what that means, and what that means for insurance. From what I understand, and I haven't delved down into it too much because it hadn't hit us yet. We weren't one of the pilot clubs.
Right.
But my understanding is people will go directly to USA Curling to get their membership. I wonder how many of my club members would do that and would see value in doing that. There's lots of, you've got 20% of your club members, right, that do bond spieling elsewhere, and maybe 2% that try to do competitive stuff. But what's the value to the 80% that just play in leagues at our local club? What's going to make them do that? And then secondly, is there, is the club going to have dues, and is the total cost of the club dues plus the individuals going to be the same as what it was before, or is there additional? So more clarity and better communication around that, I would say.
And I'll say that's on the way. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, it should be clarified. But I will say, it should be clarified by the time. There's not going to be a dues increase this year. Okay. So it's $34 per member. With that, you're going to get the $6 insurance coverage. The club will get that. There's a $3 fee for clubs for each member, but there may be some incentives for clubs to earn that back. And we are going to have clubs that are going to be able to, where members will sign up directly on the software platform, but clubs are also going to be able to do it the traditional way as well. So that's a little bit of guidance. The insurance package we feel really good about. We think it's something that clubs should really need.
To be honest, I think the insurance stuff is great. I've been part of the insurance program since we got dedicated ice, and I think the new program and the new cost is a real boon to all the clubs. So really happy and thankful for Curling for putting that together.
I mean, I'm not an insurance expert, but I know that slip and fall coverage will probably not cover someone getting injured on the ice, et cetera. This package does that. The other things, and now I'm really making the pitch here for USA Curling, but I'll just explain it. The other things, you get Safe Sport which is
Yep.
super important for our sport. You only have to look at some of the other sports like swimming and gymnastics and the problems they've had.
Absolutely.
And thankfully, we haven't had big problems in curling, but it's naive to think that we shouldn't be vigilant. And safe sport. And then the last thing is, as members, we're the national body for the sport. We're promoting the sport in the Olympics. We're doing things like that. Now, member dues don't go towards our national teams. That all comes from the USOPC, but it does, championships we run, services we provide. So all those things.
Yep.
But I appreciate that feedback. Because I really do want to get that information cleared up. And I know everybody at USA Curling does too. We had a little hiccup with the software platform when it launched. That sort of set things back.
I think the other thing is just more and better ways for promotion, leading up to the Olympics and doing things. You and I talked about this, if Team Schuster or somebody like that could do a how to watch curling video and have, a little 5-minute or 8-minute instructional thing about different facets of the game.
Yeah.
And we could promote that, in our area. We'd pay to promote that via Facebook or other social media, and that would raise interest as well. So any ways to grow our membership and promote ourselves, there's lots of clubs in curling deserts, as you referred, like us, where the vast majority of the population knows very little about curling.
Right.
Outside of, Northern Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, there's lots of places where I mention curling and they're thinking hair curling or weightlifting. And the last thing they think about is this stuff on ice. So promotion is key, and, pooling the assets or knowledge of the entire curling community and coming up with ways, I shouldn't have to, it shouldn't be up to individual clubs to come up with a commercial or different ways to promote, ads, whether, if in theory, USA Curling could produce, club level type ads that we could customize and send out via Facebook or whatever else to help grow the sport. And collectively, it's a lot less effort and time and money if it's done at the overall level, as opposed to each individual club doing their own thing.
And that's underway right now. Actually, they're working with the group that did the branding, so that we will have more of that to come. But those are all good thoughts, and it's fortunately it's all things we're working on. We have to deliver all that, but I definitely think nothing you say there isn't reasonable. So my last question for you is, what's your name your favorite place to curl besides your own club?
Yeah, certainly my own. The
trouble with your own club is every time you go there's a million questions and things to do, probably, right? So sometimes it's nice to go somewhere else.
Yeah, but I have like a $17,000 credit at the bar, so I can drink away those questions. Other places to curl, boy, lots of things come to mind. So the Leland Owl Club is a really neat little two-sheeter. Attached to a brew pub, out in a great area, and Dave and his crew that run that are awesome. So that's a fun little place. I haven't played in a spiel there, but I've gone up and practiced during the summertime, and that was really nice. I like some of the warehouse clubs. I really like to go to see what people have done. So, clubs like Columbus that we modeled ourselves on, and Cincinnati that's done some cool stuff, a hell of a lot cheaper than I even did. Yeah. That's a neat little club. The big ones are always cool, but I like this. I like the scrappy clubs that have done stuff on the cheap and have had to struggle and know the struggles that I've had. I like those sorts of clubs.
You're the fan of the scrappy upstarts, and then you go in with your engineering head to see what they've done in there, I guess. So
and get ideas, right? There's always who knows? I could be doing this again in 5 years, and I'll have picked up some more knowledge from what other people have done.
I love in Cincinnati they have that open area that's sort of open to the ice, where you can actually you could yell at people on the ice while you drink a beer, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, Columbus had that. They eventually they had just shy of room for a fourth sheet and had a big open area down the whole length where you could sit out there in the ice room and drink and harass people. And they've eventually enclosed it. But yeah, that's a pretty cool thing.
I love the idea more of that kind of interaction in clubs. Not all, I mean, there's places it's not great, but I do love when people think about the game a little differently. Well, Craig, thanks very much for your time. Hope to get out to Fort Wayne sometime this coming season, see your new place, and we'll be in touch, and hopefully we can continue to improve at USA Curling and do more to help clubs like yours.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything that USA Curling is doing to grow the sport and help us through these challenging times. And I think you'll make a significant impact. You've been an asset to curling, in past years, and I think with this platform, you'll continue to do that. And appreciate the coverage and always happy to help clubs. Either arena clubs. Talk to lots and lots of clubs, but always happy to talk to arena clubs on what we've done and give them tips to help them make the transition and or those that are in the process of doing that, and tell them some of the gotchas that we've learned about that hopefully we can help them avoid. And do you mind if I share your email in the show notes on this? Or no, absolutely. My phone number and email. Feel free to share both of those. What is your email? I think it's pretty. Is it Craig at FortWayneCurling.com? All spelled out. FortWayneCurling.com. That works pretty easy. All right, Craig. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Thank you, Dean.
That was Craig Fischer from the Fort Wayne Curling Club on the whole spiel. You can find out more about this Indiana facility at fortwaynecurling.com, and you can connect with Craig at the email address you'll find in the show notes. I'm Dean Gemmel, Director of Curling Development at USA Curling, and I hope you'll reach out to me with suggestions for future episodes or to share ideas that can help grow our game. Email me at dean.gemmel, Gemmell, at usacurling.org. And remember to visit the USA Curling website to find news, get results, watch web streams, or check out some of the latest USA Curling merchandise and apparel. Be a member, be a supporter, be a fan, but stay involved in the sport you love.